Well, now to health care. Republicans in Congress right now trying once more to repeal and replace Obamacare. And they have until next week before the clock runs out.
Critics say this attempt is the most drastic yet and could hit California the hardest of any state with $80 billion in cuts. KCAL9 political reporter Bryan joins us now to explain what this means for us.
Yeah, we're talking about massive cuts. This is a new study that just came out tonight by a private analysis outfit. The new analysis out tonight concludes that the latest Republican health care bill would gradually slash funding for Medicaid expansion and for subsidizing health insurance for low-income Americans. And the states that were aggressive in expanding health coverage and Medicaid for their residents, like California, will suffer the deepest cuts.
The headline of this bill could be Senate to California, drop dead.
Critics of the latest version of the Republican health care plan to stomp out Obamacare are in a near panic mode about the impact it will have on California and several other states. Catastrophic, they say, would be putting it mildly. Even as senators literally ran up and down stairwells and hallways in the Capitol trying to capture the last couple of votes needed to pass the plan, which will keep the Obamacare taxes.
We keep the taxes in place, but we give it to different people with more flexibility.
He ought to know. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham is co-author of the new bill with Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy.
We're going to take the bill up next week.
The vote on this one expected next week could be the final round in the parade of political drama, cliffhanger votes, and heated finger-pointing.
They might get the votes.
The Graham-Cassidy bill, also known as the Cassidy-Graham bill, would keep Obamacare taxes in place, but would turn most of the revenue over to the states to develop and run their own health care systems. 50 different versions, each with its own state bureaucracy. The former president, whose health care bill would be repealed and replaced by the Republican version, warned the public would be the losers.
When I see people trying to undo that hard-won progress for the 50th or 60th time, with bills that would raise costs or reduce coverage, or roll back protections for older Americans or people with pre-existing conditions, the cancer survivor, the expecting mom, or the child with autism or asthma, for whom coverage once again would be almost unattainable, it is aggravating. It's certainly frustrating to have to mobilize every couple of months to keep our leaders from inflicting real human suffering on our constituents.
President Trump sees things quite differently.
If you look at what's happening with premiums for people that can't afford Obamacare, it's been a catastrophic situation. I believe that Graham Cassidy really will do it the right way, and it is doing it the right way. It has tremendous support from Republicans.
But a new analysis just released on Wednesday by Avalier Health, a Washington-based health policy consulting firm, forecasts that under the Republican replacement plan, the amount of federal funding for the Medicaid program and private insurance subsidies would shrink by $215 billion between 2020 and 2026. That would be the first 6 years the Republican plan would be in effect. The study says 34 states would in fact face reduced federal spending on health insurance. And according to the private analysis of the bill, California is the state that would lose the most of all. $78 billion would be cut under the Cassidy-Graham bill from 2020, when it would go into effect, to 2026. New York, Arizona, New Jersey, and Washington state would also be big losers. But all their losses added together would still be lower than California's loss alone.
It is shocking and it is jaw-dropping to think of how many people would lose their health care coverage.
Pasadena Representative Judy Chu says many people in her district benefited from the Affordable Care Act. In fact, she says it was a lifesaver for many of them.
So I know that it will be very devastating if they are not able to get the health care that they have right now, and especially if they can't get the subsidies that has made health care affordable.
Chu's district is not alone, says Anthony Wright, the executive director of Health Access California.
It would lead to over 6.5 million more uninsured in California alone, but also the Medi-Cal program that 14 million Californians depend on. California is singled out for harsher and sooner cuts. So this is particularly and directly devastating for California and our healthcare system.
But the controversy even replaced late-night comedy for a few minutes Tuesday for Jimmy Kimmel, whose son was born with a pre-existing heart condition. On his show last night, Kimmel attacked Senator Bill Cassidy, whom he charged was not straight with him when promising to protect those with pre-existing conditions.
He failed his own test. And this guy, Bill Cassidy, just lied right to my face. Clearly, these were his words. He said he wants coverage for all, no discrimination based on pre-existing conditions, lower premiums for middle-class families, and no lifetime caps. And guess what? The new bill does none of those things.
I'm sorry he does not understand. Under Graham, Cassidy, Heller, Johnson, more people will have coverage, and we protect those with pre-existing conditions. States like Maine, Virginia, Florida, Missouri, there'll be billions more dollars to provide health insurance coverage for those in those states who have been passed by Obamacare, and we protect those with pre-existing conditions.
Now, part of the disagreement here is over new powers given to the states that they could invoke on issues like fees for pre-existing conditions and some of the other areas that are in conflict here. As you heard, the Republicans are pushing to put the Graham-Cassidy bill up for a vote in the Senate next week. That's because if they can't pass the bill by September 30th, a week from Saturday, the rules change. After that date, it would take 60 Senate votes to pass it, meaning the bill would be dead. Jeff, Lena, back to you.